I'm Javier. I'm in Spain. This is where I was born and raised for most of my life. 1 year in California, in Chico. I guess you guys know Chico. Junior year of high school. Then I also lived for a few months in Singapore during university, and I studied here in Madrid. I studied something not related to sustainability. It's more general business mixed with a little bit of computer science. But the sustainability part has been like, since I was very young, very little, I've always liked reading all of these magazines about, I don't know, how things work, or articles about renewables. I was the one at home when I was little, like, hey, you have to recycle, mom, that kind of stuff. And in general, just watching all of these shows like mega constructions, how things are built, like, so understanding how things work, I think that's really fun. And then I kept reading about it, and through college, through university, at some point I even was a little like anxious about it, I would say, like, because all you read is like doomsday stuff, like very depressing stuff, because the news, of course, they like to show the big news that are gonna help them make money. And for some point I was like, okay, maybe I want to stop reading because this is all too much. And then I guess I went back to learning more about it and facing my fear of this climate change crisis by focusing on reading the good stuff. So like all of the news that have to do with how companies are dealing with it, the startups, the good things happening out there, and filtering out the headlines of the articles that were like, oh, we're screwed, or something like that. And that really helped me to keep learning, so focusing on the good stuff, and then it makes you more prepared to learn the not so good stuff, because you know what's really going on. And then I graduated university. I started working in the field that I was more prepared for regarding my studies, which was mixing analytics and marketing, that marketing technology part. And I started working at Accenture here in Madrid, doing marketing technology consulting. So analytics, data visualization, tagging websites, cookies, all that stuff. But at the same time, I was like, okay, Javi, you've been reading a lot about this climate, tech, sustainability stuff, but besides reading about it and talking to a few people about it, you're not really doing much. So what can you do that's compatible with a full-time job, and that you can do at the same time? And I saw several options, and I was like, actually writing is good, because I can easily do it while working full-time, and it's also going to bring me value in general, not just for climate tech writing, but writing in general is good. And so I started an intensive writing course called Ship 3430. I can share with you guys. It's from an American couple of guys that teach people how to write on a digital way. And that got me started back in March. I've been writing not daily, I've skipped some days, but almost daily since then. And it's been really nice. I love it. So I keep writing and writing and reading and learning. So it helps me to read more, to learn more, and also to teach people about it, and to get the word out there for all of these climate tech news topics, concepts. And it's really cool to see the impact when you write something that many people read it, and you see some of the people reading it are head of operations at Nike. I'm making it up, but something like that, where it's someone who has power to make an important decision. So it's not just teaching the people who don't know about these topics, but also trying to influence the people who have the power to make important decisions. And now recently I launched a weekly newsletter to teach one specific climate tech topic each week. So the goal is to teach both the people who work in sustainability and want to learn more about this, and also the people who are, for example, in university, and many people young like me, like they just finished university and they're like, okay, I want to make an impact in climate, but I don't know enough. So for them to learn about these topics is key to then go into a job where they can show their knowledge and apply it. So it's a mix. People who are already working, people who are not working, but all related to wanting to make an impact in climate. And education, I believe, is necessary for that. And there's a lot out there. I read a lot, but it's usually either very complex or very long, or it's not easily accessible sometimes. So that's why I wanted to digest it for the way people read nowadays, which is like, okay, I want it now, easy to understand and quick. And that's the starting point. So if you want to learn more, you can always learn more. But at least you have that little thought in your head that's like, I didn't know that. Let me read more about it. Or how can I use it in my company? How can I use it in my career? How can I? So yeah, so I don't have a specific presentation. I was suggested to maybe talk about some of the topics that I've already written about. So I think that would be interesting. But other than that, I think the main message is that if any of you here on this call want to start doing something in climate, you don't need to be an engineer, for example, or a lawyer or something like that. Like you can literally start like I did, like writing, or there's so many things that can be done that as long as you find a couple hours or an hour every single day, that's already enough to start making an impact that eventually will scale. So like, yeah, don't think, oh, I have nothing to contribute, because I also thought that at some point I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I think this is an important message before talking about a specific topic. But yeah, other than that, I guess I was literally just gonna pull out the latest issue from the newsletter that I did, which was on agrivoltaics, which is a specific climate tech topic that not many people know about. And I think it would be interesting to share it with you, if that's fine. Let me try to share the screen. One sec. Yeah, I don't know if any of you have heard about this topic. Agrivoltaics the name sounds quite obvious, but it's a combination of agriculture with photovoltaic energy, because well, population is set to increase a lot in the coming years, and also people are going to get richer. So if they get richer and there's more people, we have to produce more energy and we have to produce more food. But the thing is, there's only so much land for producing either food or electricity, because solar panels, they take up vast amounts of land, and not just any land. It has to be specific, like it needs to have some specific characteristics. Same for food. So an idea that seems very obvious, but that's not being done at a large scale yet, is combining both. So basically putting on the same piece of land both plants, or even sheep or chicken or whatever, and solar panels. The most common type of combination is putting the panels above of the plants, but there's also other different ways to combine them. So like right next to each other, or mixing their shapes, like there's different ways. And yeah, basically we need to produce a lot more solar, since you can see by this kind of depressing graph, in order to get to net zero, because we're on the right track, but we're going very slowly. So we need to figure out, okay, where do we put these panels? Sure, we can put them on houses, but that's not always so easy, and it's not so efficient, because there's going to be chimneys, trees covering, so you're not going to get the most sunlight on a rooftop usually. So basically what you're doing with agrivoltaics is, like you can see on this super cool picture that I found, instead of having two pieces of land, one with food, one with solar panels, you combine them. And in that case, sure, you're not going to produce food in the most efficient way, and you're not going to produce electricity in the most efficient way, but combining them is the most efficient result. So like you're not optimizing for growing wheat, and you're not optimizing for producing solar energy, but by combining both of those things in a piece of land, the total output that you get is better than by doing separately. And also we have no land, remember. Especially, I think I have the data here. Yeah, in the US alone, just if you know this number, over 50% of the land is used for agriculture. That's massive, like massive. And we're gonna need even more of that. Sure, we can also have vertical farming, indoor farming, etc., but we're still not there. So in the meantime, we need to combine solar with agriculture. And here's why it's so amazing. So solar panels are not, they like the sun, but they don't like the heat. They're not as efficient once you get to a certain point of temperature. They start becoming less and less efficient at converting sunlight into electricity. So by having plants underneath them, the air underneath gets colder. It's more humid, cooler. So the panels increase their efficiency. So that's the win for the panels. Then the wind for the plants. As you know, extreme weather events are getting more common. Too much hail, rain, sun, heat, etc. And the panels protect the plants. So that's good for increasing the harvest in general. If a year there's hail and you have solar panels on top, you will not lose all of your harvest because your plants will be protected, for example. And also in terms of sun, people think that all plants love the sun, but I guess you've experienced that it's not really the case when you're out in the summer and your plants are like almost dying. That's because after a certain point of receiving sunlight, they don't photosynthesize anymore. There's a limit to how much they can convert solar energy into nutrients for them, into growth. And thus having shade provided by the solar panels is not bad. It's actually good. Some specific plants do require a lot of sun, and maybe they're not ideal for being under solar panels, but most of them, like berries, tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, potatoes, anything, they're usually good under the shade. Plus, the solar panels don't completely cover the plants in some of the cases, like you can still get sunlight from the sides. And now there's even solar panels that you can automatically adjust their angle to make sure the plants receive the exact appropriate amount of sunlight. So everything in this sense can be optimized to protect the plants as much as possible. And then the win for the farmer, because farmers also need to realize why this is good for them, otherwise they won't do it. They need to spend less money on water, because if you have solar panels covering the plants, less water evaporates. Just try to throw some water in the summer out there in the sand. It's going to evaporate way faster than if you throw it somewhere in the shade. And this saves money for them. Also, the fact that their plants are going to be having higher yields because the harvest doesn't get destroyed by extreme weather events. They are growing food more efficiently since they're protected from the sun in a specific way. And also they create, farmers have a new source of income, a new source of revenue, yeah, because the electricity the solar panels generate, they can do two things with that. They can either sell it back to the energy system, the energy grid provider, or they can even use it in their farms, as you can see here, to power machinery, vehicles, irrigation systems, anything. And imagine for some reason the harvest that year didn't work. Well, they can still make money from the solar panels. Or imagine they didn't make enough money from the solar panels, they can still make money from the harvest. So it's a diversification and increasing revenue streams for them, which is really good. And it's specifically good for those regions where it's very hot and dry and they rely a lot on agriculture, because in those places, plants are going to need more shade. They're going to need less evaporation. So think of India, think of parts of Latin America. Those places, they could really benefit from this. And like the question here says, if it's so awesome, why isn't it everywhere? And it's actually sad, but because these reasons are dumb to me, but they're true. So aesthetics, many farmers, I don't know if you know any cases like this, but they're not open to be the first ones or to have this in their farms, in their land. Just like many don't want, oh yeah, we're going to build some wind turbines here. And they say, no, not in my backyard. This is common, actually, not just in the US, in Spain, like all over the world. So there's that feeling of, nah, I don't want to try that, or it doesn't look good, or why here? Do it on someone else's land. It's going to mess up my land. So more education is needed on that side to tell them, hey, it's dumb not to do this. It's economically good, environmentally good. It's good in every single way. Then bureaucracy, the big enemy of all of these projects. So legislation is different in California, in New York, in Spain, in France. So it's very difficult for farmers and companies to get the permits for these projects. And also you don't get the same treatment for your land if you're using it for growing vegetables or if you're using it for producing solar energy. So when you have to explain to the specific government, yeah, I'm doing both, then they get confused, and it can get very difficult to get permits and all the papers in order. So that's a big stopper. And then also cost-wise, it's more expensive to have solar panels on top of plants than to simply put them just like normal solar arrays on an open field, because mostly you need to invest on the infrastructure to put the panels higher up. But in the long term, these costs are taken care of. Like it's worth it in the long term. But farmers usually care about the short term because they say, okay, this is how much money I have from last year's harvest. So they want to make sure they can get it back quickly. And those are the main three issues. Here, I just discussed some other specific projects going on. Mostly in the US, you guys have a pretty cool project in Colorado where they use it to teach, not just to generate electricity and produce food, but also to teach farmers about this. Because as I said, there's a big problem in terms of education. Most farmers don't even know about this, and they're reluctant to embrace it because they don't know if it's good, bad, how it's going to affect their harvest. So these people are doing a really good job in terms of teaching farmers, hey, how this is done, why it's so awesome. And overall, this is a nice topic, I think, that I wanted you to to learn about. I don't know if you liked it. If you want to read the full thing, I'll share the link to the newsletter later. And like Sammy said, the week before that, I mentioned director capture. This week it was agrivoltaics, and tomorrow is going to be green steel, another big topic in climate tech, because steel contributes around 7% of global CO2 emissions, and no one talks about it when saying climate change. They say, oh yeah, you have to go vegan, fly less, and have an electric vehicle, but no one talks about cement, steel, like those hard to decarbonize things. So yeah, sorry if that was too long. Wait, let me stop sharing.
That wasn't too long, and it's all wonderful and truly appreciated. And thank you. And if you have other information that you would want to present, we're open to that.
Sure. I mean, might as well talk about director capture, and I guess we'll finish with that one because I don't have any more long topics written so far. So director capture, again, I don't know if you have heard about this topic or not, but basically the main idea is that in order to fix climate change, so to get to the appropriate constitution of the atmosphere, so a certain number of CO2 particles in the atmosphere, we have too many right now, so we have to get back down. There's two things we have to do to get there. Stop producing more CO2 and methane and other greenhouse gases, so the number doesn't keep going up. But we also have to bring that number down. So how do we do that? By capturing CO2 and other gases, greenhouse gases that are already out there in the atmosphere, sorry, that we have put out there since the 18th century. And there's several ways to do that. There's basically nature-based solutions and technological-based solutions. The technological-based solutions, the leader one is director capture. And basically it's like what you see here, huge, well, not huge, pretty big machines which have like fans to suck the air out of the atmosphere and then take the CO2 out of it bring all the rest of the air, put it back in the atmosphere and get the CO2 and either trap it underground or use it to make other stuff. So let's go into more detail. Well, you guys in the US are investing a lot into this kind of stuff with the Inflation Reduction Act that came out in July or August this year. There's billions pouring into capturing carbon capture technologies. Then we also have huge companies like Google, Shopify, Stripe, like all of these pouring billions again into capturing CO2, because these companies, they want to, sure, help the planet, but they also want to offset their emissions so they can look good and they can be legally okay in terms of emissions, let's say. So it's growing a lot. Like I said, this is a really cool graph. This is how many parts, ppm, parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere we want to have, and we are right here. So first step is to stop going up. That means bringing all our emissions to zero, which is very, very difficult, but that's what we're doing. And then go back from up here down to 300. And that's where you have to capture CO2 one way or another. And you see many companies investing in these carbon capture technologies. Elon Musk even launched a competition with a $100 million prize, which is crazy, for startups to create solutions. And there's, I encourage you to check it out. There's companies capturing carbon with the ocean, with rocks, with machines, in so many different ways, which is really cool because you can see there's money going in and results coming out. And okay, here's the logic that I think you're gonna see more easily with this diagram. Basically, the air goes in with the fans. Inside, there are some chemicals that trap the CO2, only the CO2, because they are chemically attracted to each other, the CO2 and these chemicals. And then you apply some heat or some pressure, and the CO2 is released from those chemicals, and you can capture it. And the rest of the air just goes back into the atmosphere, which is all of the other gases in the atmosphere, like oxygen, nitrogen, you name it. And it's totally fine. And I don't want to go into the technical details because there's several types of direct air capture, but this is the main idea. You get CO2 from the air, make it contact some chemicals, and apply some heat and/or electricity, and that gets you the CO2 on one side and all of the other good gases on the other one, which go back into the atmosphere. And once you have the CO2 captured, you can do two things with it. Store it, which is called carbon sequestration, carbon capture and sequestration. And it's literally to bring it really, really, really deep underground and make sure it stays there by binding it with the rocks that are deep down there. And what you can do by doing that, what you can tell companies is, hey, I captured 1 ton of CO2 for you, so you have to pay me. Here's your carbon credit. Like, me capturing 1 ton of CO2 equals 1 carbon credit. Do you want that carbon credit, which makes you look better and lets you pollute a bit more, or makes you get closer to net zero? Sure, pay for it. So this is one way to finance this business model. And the other one is using that carbon that you captured to make stuff. There's carbon everywhere, if you think about it. Like carbonated drinks, for example, cement, rubber, fuel. There's companies now making jet fuel out of CO2, which is amazing, which means that flying will become emissions free because the fuel that you're using is coming from CO2 that you captured, so it's net zero. And there's this company that I recommend you check out. It's called Ether Diamonds. And those diamonds are carbon, basically. They're pure carbon. And what these guys did is they captured the CO2 and they processed it chemically a little bit using renewable energy, and they turned it into diamonds. So their diamonds are actually carbon positive because it's like tons of CO2 captured, concentrated, and turned into a diamond. So it's pretty cool. And also diamonds are usually very polluting and unethical industry, because the diamond mines in Africa, machinery that's outdated, not very efficient. So it's not a very clean industry. So the fact that these guys are doing this is awesome. And yeah, director capture is good because it's going to help us get down these emissions that we have out in the air. But of course, it's too expensive right now, like really expensive. And some companies are also using it in a bad way, like kind of as an excuse to be able to pollute more, like, oh, yeah, I'm helping to capture CO2, so might as well emit more CO2. And also the way that carbon storage is working mostly nowadays is you place it near old oil wells that big oil companies are using. And that builds up pressure in the well to get the oil out more easily. So it actually means that oil companies can get out more oil out of oil wells. So this needs to change. But up to now, it was how these companies could make money. And also, we need to capture a lot of CO2, like a lot. And with direct air capture, it's not going to be nearly enough, at least with the technology we have right now. It needs to scale a lot and very quickly. So lots of money have to pour in. But it's one of those solutions out there, and it's pretty cool. And in another issue of the newsletter, I'll be talking about nature-based solutions, like using the ocean to capture carbon, using rocks to capture carbon, etc. And I also suggest you look at these companies down here when I send you the newsletter, which are basically, most climate tech companies are in the US, in California specifically, which you guys are lucky for that, because it's really amazing. And except for this one, which is from Switzerland. But you see, they're doing so many cool things that since you live there, don't miss the chance to talk to more climate tech entrepreneurs. I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you, because there's so many cool things going on there. Yeah, that's a super extreme summary of direct air capture.